So we'll start with me. I'm here. And Bill, please feel free to tell me if you're here.
Will?
Is here.
John Derby here.
On.
John Marshall's here.
Clark.
How do you turn this on?
Seth is absent.
It's on. It is on.
And vacant is not here.
Correct.
And William Wood.
William Wood is, I thought he was joining us via Zoom, but I don't see him here yet. We do still have 4, which is a quorum.
So next on the agenda is a review of we'll have approval of minutes from the December meeting, public testimony period, commission business, which tonight includes a one topic is the public hearing on the Colburn Creek subdivision. Second item is the public hearing on a proposed food truck plaza. Then a discussion item later on section of Willamette Street and Van Dyne Street. And lastly, city updates and adjournment. So, approval of minutes.
Chair Bell, I do have a couple additions to the agenda.
Let's hear them.
The first is that we'll be reviewing the Planning Commission goals and priorities for 2023 with that discussion item at the end of the meeting. I also just wanted to make sure everyone has their microphones turned on. And I'm not sure that the recording caught that this meeting was called to order at 6:03. So I just wanted to make sure that was noted in the recording. Also, that Alan Wells was elected city councilor and as such has resigned from the Planning Commission. So there will be a vacancy and staff will be recruiting for a new commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bell, I just really encourage the commissioners to pull the microphone to your face, make sure they're turned on and speak loudly into them. We have a hearing impaired person in the room. So he is struggling with hearing. So please do your best to use your loud voices tonight.
In your packets should be the minutes from the December meeting. I think they're next behind the agenda. Has everyone got that? As you read through the packet, I would love to entertain a motion to accept the minutes as published or to make suggested corrections.
That the minutes be approved as written.
I'll second.
All those in favor of accepting the December minutes as published, please indicate by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
The motion to pass the minutes is accepted. We now have a 5-minute limit public testimony portion for the agenda. Is there anybody that has indicated a desire to provide testimony?
Have no one signed up for public testimony?
All right. Commission business is next. Public hearing on the Coburg Creek subdivision, first edition. So as you recall from our previous planning commission meeting, there was a requirement to have this hearing and then continue it again for this public meeting. So we're going to reopen the hearing as it started in December. So we are now talking about the Weichert Custom Homes subdivision. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. This will be the continuation of the earlier December public hearing on this topic. How shall we proceed?
If the commission would like staff to present again, I do have that PowerPoint. It is the same presentation that you received at the December 21st meeting. I do also have some written testimony that was provided. I think that might come after.
Okay. What's the consensus of the commission on revisiting the PowerPoint presentation? Are we good with what we?
I don't need to see it.
Or do I? All right, I think the consensus would be to proceed to testimony.
The city received three or four different pieces of testimony that were all emailed out to the commission. One of which it was requested that I read aloud at this meeting. So I'm going to do that first. This is from Sandra and James Marr, dated January 9th, 2023, regarding the notice of land use proposal for sub 0122. In regard to the above proposal, we submit the following comments. Currently, there is only one access into the subdivision being built by Bruce Weichert Custom Homes, with the citizens of North Coleman Street bearing the entire burden of the traffic associated with the subdivision. With the improvements to North Coleman Street, speeding has become an issue on the street due to the long, straight, wide stretch of pavement leading to the subdivision. We understand that the plan is to use Macy Street as a second access into the subdivision and that we can assume approval of Macy Street for that purpose since the city has accepted the dedication of the street by the developer to the city of Coburg. Our concern is that while we may assume Macy Street will be used as the second access, does not seem to be an absolute at this time. Some issue or problem could arise in the future that causes the city to change course and decide against using Macy Street. For example, there was a great deal of discussion at the December 21st, 2022 meeting about the dangerous nature of the intersection in the area of North Willamette and East Van Dyne, which would both be outlet streets for traffic coming from Macy Street. The city could decide that situation or some other obstacle is unacceptable and ultimately decide against the use of Macy Street. So at this time, we would like to go on record as opposing land use proposals sub 0122. Thank you for your opportunity to comment. Sandra and James Marr, 91188 North Coleman Street. We've had a request that a second piece of testimony be read. Also regarding sub 0122, we are opposed to any additional building of the subdivision at this time. It was our understanding that the building was restricted to current level due to North Coleman being the only access into the development. We do see under Article 8 supplemental district regulations, the discussion of new public streets within the subdivision. However, the Macy Street access will be reviewed separately under public improvement review process and Coburg Transportation System Plan at a later date. Until Macy Street or another access into the development is available, we are opposed to any further building of the development. Please provide this testimony at the January 18th public hearing. Edward and Susan Wojciechowski, 32756 East Mill Street.
Thank you for reading the testimony.
Was there one more?
There was one more in support. It was not requested that I read that out loud. It was sent to the commission. I can read it aloud if the commission would like to hear that.
Is it the one that had the map associated with it, a plat?
No, but we do have, that is the most recent one we received, and I'm going to pass that map, that addendum out. Stan is here tonight as well.
Megan, was it testimony two? At the one, is the other one? Can't seem to open that one.
Sorry, Commissioner Doyle, what was that?
Was it testimony two was the other one?
The other piece of testimony is in support. It is from Peter Chapin. Are you able to access that, Commissioner Doyle?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you. Oh, take it back.
Okay, to the City of Coburg Planning Commission, I would like to submit my support for the 15 lot subdivision that Weichert Custom Homes is proposing to build, application sub 0122. I have lived in the local Eugene Springfield area for the past 42 years. For all of those years, I have been in the plumbing business, focusing on residential new construction. Over the years, my company has employed from 6 to 18 employees. Building houses supports the economy in so many ways, not just for the local businesses directly involved with the building and installing of products, but it also creates jobs for the manufacturing of raw materials needed to build the houses. From the groundwork, concrete, framing materials, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, roofing, insulation, sheetrock, painting, floor coverings, cabinets, countertops, and appliances. Many of those products are locally manufactured. Even for those that are not locally manufactured, those products are shipped in, stocked in a local place of business, and shipped out to the job site. All of this creating jobs. You have permits, inspections, and recording that keep city and county employees working. If you follow down the line of jobs created to go from raw materials to the finished product in a house, it creates and supports many, many jobs. Especially at this time, jobs are needed and necessary to keep our economy going. There is also the side of increased revenue for the city and the local businesses, not only while the construction is in progress, but also when the houses are completed and the new residents continue to support the city and local businesses with taxes and normal daily living. There is also a high demand and need for housing. This seems to be a perfect win-win situation. Sincerely, Peter Chapin.
Thank you.
Today, Stanley Shattuck submitted an addendum to the testimony that he provided for the December 21st meeting that was emailed out to the commission this afternoon. I also have hard copies available if anyone would like to see one.
Would you be able to explain it? All I saw was a plat and I'm not sure I understood.
I didn't quite get it.
I didn't quite understand what the if you know is.
I'm not certain, but I can read that it says if you are leaving Van Dyne Street, 85-foot plus or minus traffic turnaround at the southwest corner of tax lot 1200. Sincerely, Stan Schadt.
Can you elaborate at all on what he's referring to?
In his previous testimony, he spoke about the issues of large trucks and other traffic turning around on Van Dyne Street due to the narrow right-of-way. I can't speak on Stan's behalf, but I believe this is related to the difficulties in turning around because Van Dyne is not a through street.
Okay, got it. Understand.
Is there any other testimony?
No.
As I look through the public hearing documentation, it does go over the ex parte contact. And does anybody in the planning commission wish to disclose any ex parte contact that's taken place since the first hearing in December? Though noted as negative. We've had our staff presentation already. We've had applicant comments and testimony. We've now had public testimony. Are there any questions from the planning commission to Megan?
In regards to the connection of Macy to the subdivision, that seemed to be a concern with the written testimony. That's not listed as a condition, but it is within the development plat and proposal. Is that sufficient to satisfy the concern of the people that were that had the testimony? Or should we add a condition that the subdivision will be connected to Macy somehow?
It is my understanding that with the dedication of Macy Street, the portion that's already been dedicated, as well as this subdivision application,
Okay.
that is an approval of that access being connected westward.
And I assume that everything has to be, all the utilities, streets and everything else have to be approved prior to any building permits being issued.
Could you repeat that, Commissioner, please?
All the streets, access points to the subdivision has to be approved prior to any building permits being.
Yes, that is correct. The utilities, infrastructure, streets will all go through a public improvement review process, and that construction will take place.
Thank you.
And Macy Street will be included in that.
Macy Street will go through its own design approval process. So starting February 1st, there will be 2 designs available for the public to weigh in on that have been prepared by the city engineers. So once the city garners some public input on which design is preferred, city council will finalize that decision and the developer will make those improvements to Harrison Street. Yes.
So just to clarify, it's not necessary to make that as a condition here, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
If commission would like to, just, yeah.
okay. So is it possible that not happen, the Macy connection?
I don't see how that would be possible at this time. Anne, do you have anything to add?
I just want to correct that the developer will be asked to make changes to Macy Street up to Harrison Street. That will be their portion of the street. The city is scheduled work on Macy Street for next summer. So we're trying to connect the projects. one of the things that was very important to the council is they hear from the community on not just Macy Street design, but North Willamette Street design, as well as Harrison Street design down several blocks. So our engineers are working on that, and that will be available for review and comment, but it is the intention that this street project, all those street projects would be taking place in next summer. Now, I don't know to what extent that would be at this intersection up here, but as far as the street design and reconstruction, the plan is for that to happen next summer.
It's scheduled. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We're at the portion of this public hearing where we can close the public hearing. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
And a second for that.
I'll second it.
All those in favor of closing the public hearing on the Bruce Wyrick Custom Homes, Inc. Public hearing, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
That public hearing is now closed. Shall we proceed to the next one?
I believe it's time for deliberation and decision.
So a decision to make the approval of the custom homes project. Is there a motion to continue or to debate or to have a final vote?
I don't have anything further to discuss. Or deliberate.
Nor do I.
Anything else for you?
I had a question. I don't know if it's too late, but
Go for it.
so with the map testimony product about access for large trucks, is there access with the new sort of with however, is got enough room for a truck to make like a, to pull in, back out and go out? Like a T turn around at that intersection of Van Dyne and Skinner. I know that was a concern of those property owners. I mean, I don't know, I'm not looking at it.
Was your question if that
So-
is large enough?
Yeah, so I know we talked about at the last meeting about how wide that and what that dedication is. I think there was some reserve striping going on, and then there's some removable bollards. Is that removable bollards for like emergency vehicles or for just anybody to move them as they turn around?
The emergency bollards are strictly for emergency vehicles.
So
Yes.
an emergency vehicle would be able to get through there and turn around.
An emergency vehicle would, yes.
And other trucks like FedEx would have no problems doing a T turnaround in that area.
I do not have an answer for the needed turning radius of delivery trucks.
And I know it's just only 1, 2, 3 people that live there that would affect.
The subdivision, also, this is just a little outside of the purview of this application.
So it's basically kind of irrelevant.
I think it is a concern, but like I said, it is,
I think that while it's a concern of a citizen with the subdivision, it is not related to the traffic pattern of the subdivision. I think it definitely is a concern that can be brought up to the city. And if the planning commission sees this as a concern, they can definitely make a recommendation to the city council that they consider looking at this intersection. But I don't know that it should be considered part of this application. I mean, it's a concern on a street, but that part of the subdivision has already been approved, and Skinner was already designated as a non-through street to the subdivision. So I'm not sure how it relates to this application unless one of you have other comments regarding that.
Quite frankly, if I'm not mistaken, that the tie through from Skinner to the subdivision is primarily for pedestrian and bicycles, and then the bollards are to keep cars and other vehicles to go through. The bollards can be removed for emergency vehicles only, not for delivery trucks or anything like that. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and to clarify, the last submission for testimony, the little plat is regarding Van Dyne and how it dead ends. It really is not applicable to the subdivision itself, although I'm sure that people do get confused and probably will get confused in the future, that they'll pull out through Van Dyne thinking they can get through there, but they won't be able to and have to turn around. And so I don't know how the city might address that outside of this, but I'm sure that they can to alleviate the concerns of Mr. Shatner. Is that correct? So try to say that it's well posted, that that's not a turnaround or it's a dead end street type of thing. So if I'm correct on that.
yes, thank you.
Would there be a motion to approve this Bruce White Custom Homes application?
Mr. Chairman, based upon the finding as presented by staff, I move to recommend approval of the proposed Coburg Creek subdivision first edition sub 01-22 with the conditions of approval 1 through 9 as listed in the staff report.
Second.
All those in favor of that motion, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved.
Before we get into the next public hearing, in conjunction with this recommendation for approval of the Coburg Creek subdivision first edition, I would like the planning commission to consider maybe further recommending to city council that they direct staff to assure that the planned improvements to Macy and North Willamette and Harrison are completed on or before the develop completes the connection of the subdivision to Macy Street. I would hate to see that we have the connection being done, but somewhere down the line, our schedules get fouled up and those streets are not improved to meet the standards for people to get in and out of that subdivision. So I would like to make that motion at this time, if that's okay. That we do that to assure that those streets are done with the completion of that development. So when we have traffic coming through there, we have city streets that can accommodate it.
Staff, sound reasonable?
I mean, you're a recommending body. You can recommend what you want as a group. So
I second that, John, for sure.
All those in favor of passing said motion, please say aye, raise your hand.
clarification. Can you list the streets that you're asking? Are you saying Macy and North Willamette and Harrison? That the work be done prior to them beginning phase 2? Or before?
Well, by the time they complete and have that connection through, so
Okay,
when the.
okay. I just needed that clarification. That the city completes our work
Yep.
at the same time that they do theirs.
Right.
Thanks, John.
Next item on our agenda is the public hearing regarding a food truck plaza. Barnyard site. Till, let's open that public.
Just like to ask all Zoom participants to make sure you are muted, please.
Are you asking for a presentation from the applicant at this point?
No, not quite yet, Alan.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Staff have anything on this?
Staff does have a presentation prepared. Is the planning?
Oops.
I think they just need to lean in.
Maybe we've got 9 people joining us online.
Just lean in.
Thank you for bearing with me through these technical difficulties here. Okay, so before you now is staff presentation on SRO for 2022, a food truck plaza known as the Barnyard Site Review. I'm going to give a brief overview of the proposal. I will list the conditions of approval, and then I will outline options for Planning Commission action. The proposal is for a site design review for a food truck plaza called the Barnyard, located on Willamette Street near the intersection with Pearl Street. The proposal includes a concrete pad for up to 5 food trucks, a small entertainment stage, and approximately 1,000 square foot building that will include restrooms. The proposed project will be constructed in phases. The first phase includes only the concrete pad for the food trucks and an accessible restroom facility. The second phase will include a small entertainment stage and the small building called the barn. The subject property is zoned Central Business District within the architecturally controlled area and downtown district overlay, and contains a comprehensive plan map designation of Central Business District. The property has existing access from West Mackenzie Street and frontage on Willamette Street. While a food truck plaza is not specifically listed in the permitted uses, Staff determined the proposed use fits within the permitted uses of the zoning designation as a combination of personal services, retail, and mobile food carts, all of which are permitted principal uses in the underlining zoning designation. Food carts will be required to obtain type 1 approval subject to the standards of Article 8, Section N, and staff will review the applications for compliance with these standards upon type 1 permit submittal. To ensure the mobile vending standards are met, staff recommend this as a condition of approval. The subject property is presently a vacant field south of the Coburg Inn mixed-use development and is the anticipated location for phase 2 of the Coburg Inn mixed-use development. According to the applicant and property owner, this proposal is not planned as the final use for this property, but rather a limited duration development until phase 2 of the Coburg Inn is more economically feasible. Phase 2 of the Coburg Inn will be required to undergo a separate site design approval process when the owner is ready to develop. The proposed project will be constructed in phases. The first phase, as I mentioned, includes only the concrete pad for the food trucks and an accessible restroom facility. The second phase will include the small entertainment stage and small building. It is the intention of the applicant to incorporate as much of the construction of the barnyard into the design of phase 2 of the Coburg Inn, as seen on the phase 2 site proposed plan. The subject property is located within the downtown district overlay and is subject to the requirements of the newly adopted form-based code. The proposed use will provide goods and services to the public as associated with service commercial use. Any special events such as entertainment or seasonal markets will obtain separate city approval as required. The proposal meets the building standards with features such as increased fenestration on the building facade facing Willamette Street, entry oriented towards Willamette Street, and a front porch and pedestrian walkway built to the public right-of-way or sidewalk. The Central Business District is exempt from minimum parking requirements for vehicles. Employee parking will be accommodated in the existing Coburg Inn parking lot. The proposed project shares parking and access with the Coburg Inn through an existing easement for access, parking, and maintenance. Bicycle parking facilities are required. Stationary racks are proposed to provide on-site bicycle parking near the proposed building, but are absent from the site plan. There are approximately 65 motor vehicle spaces in the existing Coburg Inn parking lot. To meet the minimum requirements of 1 bicycle space for every 7 motor vehicle spaces, 9 bicycle spaces are required. Staff recommend bicycle parking facilities as a condition of approval. The 3 recommended conditions of approval are: 1, all food trucks must obtain a type 1 approval for mobile vending prior to operation. 2, prior to the commencement of construction activities, the applicant shall submit for and obtain the required building permits. And 3, that bicycle parking facilities to accommodate a minimum of 9 bicycles must be provided on site as part of the first proposed phase of the food truck plaza. I have outlined some options for Planning Commission when you are ready to make a decision. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Could you go back over the parking again, as far as that there's no requirement for business parking? Businesses aren't required to have parking for their customers?
That is correct. Everywhere in the central business district is exempt from minimum off-street parking requirements other than for employees and work vehicles. This is becoming common in the state of Oregon as parking requirements are being reduced to encourage development as well as walkability.
I totally understand the ideal thinking there. But what happens in practice is they park elsewhere.
Quick question, you referred to the food trucks needing a type 1 approval. I'm not familiar with what a type 1 approval is.
A type 1 approval is an administrative land use process. So staff complete the review and make the decision on approval.
In the type 1 approval, is there any concept or relationship to aesthetics and how it appears to people driving by?
Not specifically for mobile food vending. The requirements are mostly oriented towards safety and utility connections.
So I'm confused here. My understanding is there was an attempt for downtown to have some kind of historic character or nature to architecture. How would that apply in this particular case?
The historic building standards will apply to the building itself, but not to the mobile food trucks. And part of that is because they are not a structure. The other part is there is a policy in the Coburg Comprehensive Plan that talks about artificially creating a historic representation and to avoid that. And so I believe that asking a mobile food cart that is not going to be a building to have a historic feature might be out of line with that policy of the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. I'll proceed with the script here for this public hearing. This is application is submitted SR 4-22 submitted by Alan Wells of Alan Wells Revocable Trust and Mark B. Mazzetta. The application is for a site design review for the food truck plaza called the Barnyard, as we had heard. The applicable approval criteria and standards were indicated in the presentation by staff, but also include Article 11 land use review and site review, central business district regulations, downtown district regulations, and Article 8 supplementary district regulations. All testimony or evidence shall concern the approval criteria described in the staff report and other criteria in the comprehensive plan or land use regulations that the person testifying believes apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient detail to give the hearings body and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue means that no appeal may be made to the State Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Another point here is the ex parte contact. Members of the Planning Commission shall not communicate directly or indirectly with any applicant, appellant, other party to the proceedings, or representative of a party about any issue involved in a hearing without giving notice. Just as an aside here, it says no communication between city staff and the Planning Commission is not considered ex parte contact. As we proceed with this hearing, are there any commissioners who wish to disclose any ex parte contacts about this? Okay. We have completed the staff presentation. Next on my list of things to say and do would be the applicant's comments and testimony on this application.
I guess that would be me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, it says to go ahead and state your name and address for the public record.
Thank you. My name is Alan Wells. My address is 32668 East Locust Street, Coburg, Oregon.
I
Okay.
think we need to officially open the public hearing.
I recorded that we did that with a gavel strike at 6:36 PM.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to make sure.
I'm happy to reopen it again. Go ahead, Alan.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do this via Zoom. I'm visiting family in Kansas City. I would very much have liked to be there, but I think I can't see in the audience, but I think my partner in the project, Don Johnson, is there. He and I are available to answer any questions you have. Megan did a good job of presenting the project. In some of the discussion that took place thereafter, there was a question about parking, and a very reasonable question, and one that we've wrestled with. I say we have a little bit of an advantage there to other properties in Coburg in that we have a graveled lot that is contemplated to be phase 3 of our project, that we are going to allow overflow parking in. That is, if we need it. Hopefully we will need it, but we will be placing gravel on that lot and allowing patrons of the food truck plaza, and for that matter, patrons of the Coburg Inn to park there. I think we will probably get, I checked with Don, but I think we'll probably get 25 spaces in that lot. So I think we will have adequate parking on site for both the Coburg Inn businesses and the barnyard businesses. As Megan said in her presentation, we're hoping to incorporate most, if not all, of the improvements that we're going to make to this barnyard into our second phase of the Coburg Inn. The concrete pads, the infrastructure, most of the infrastructure is already there. Even the pub itself, we will be taking the roof off and incorporating into the design of the second phase of the project. So nothing hopefully is going to be wasted. This is just a means of being able to use the property for a purpose temporarily until we can frankly afford, and it makes economic sense to build phase 2. We have so far 2 food trucks signed up for this. If this is approved, we have a third that we're talking to. At least publicly, in our talking to people around the community, it seems to be pretty well supported. There was a concern expressed recently about the effect this was going to have on other businesses in town. And I want to just quickly address that. Before we even contemplated going forward with this, we talked to like the owners of Chiefs and other business owners in the area, and every one of them without question has supported this. We would never do anything on, in relative to the Coburg Inn that would put at risk or make business difficult for anyone else in town. That's just not the way we operate. And I just wanted to address that because this was not done in a vacuum or in a bubble. We did talk to everybody else in town that we felt might be affected by this, and they all were very supportive of the project. So anyway, Don and I are here to answer any questions you have, and thanks again for allowing us to make the presentation.
Thank you, Alan. The next portion of this hearing deals with public testimony on the application, first by proponents and then by opponents. All speakers must give their name and address. Comments should be addressed to this hearing body and be relevant to the application, should not be of a personal nature. We would limit testimony to 5 minutes. Unruly behavior and harassing remarks are not permitted. Is there any written or oral testimony from the proponents? Is there any written or oral testimony from the opponents?
Yes, we did receive one piece of written testimony in opposition that was emailed to the planning commission. But seeing as I've read the others, I think I'll read this quickly. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in about the food cart pod potentially downtown. First off, it'll hurt both little restaurants really bad. Second thing is food cart pods are a big mess and they look very unattractive, especially in a historic town. Will the facades of the food carts have to look historic? There will be a lot of grease traps and have to be put in, and that will be a big mess as well. Yes, it's a big money maker for whoever put it in, but because there's no overhead, but the food carts are not the way to go for Coburg, in my opinion. That is from Stephen Sheehan.
Thank you, Megan.
What address?
Was not provided in the email.
Is there anyone else who hasn't had time or hasn't provided testimony and wishes to? If that is the case, I would go ahead and close the public hearing at this time. At 6:50 Pacific Standard Time. You can now have a deliberation and decision. Any thoughts, questions, motions, etc.?
Yeah, I did. So because that's a prime real estate, I just want to reiterate that this is a temporary, or question that this is just a temporary solution until they're able to have the finances to construct their phase 2 mixed use building, correct?
That is what the applicant has expressed. Yes, Alan, would you like to say anything further?
Yes, that's exactly right. And
So
again,
it's-
we're hoping to incorporate as much of this into that down the road. So yes, but that's accurate.
So it's your very intention to not retain this as a food truck, but to actually build on this and make a beautiful addition to Coburg?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Alan, just to clarify, since we're asking you questions and you're answering, the phase 2 part to add on to the barn, if I could read it correctly, was going to be basically adjacent to your existing Coburg Inn, and from Willamette, basically block the view of said food trucks, correct?
No, not necessarily. It is, although you will see that you pull up to that intersection at Pearl and Willamette, you'll be seeing essentially the side of the barn and the outdoor patio and the public access there. But the food trucks are kind of to your right, and you'll be able to see the food trucks sort of. You certainly will be able to see them if you're heading south on Willamette Street. But no, the intention wasn't for the barn to block the view of the food trucks. You'll be able to see them from that intersection.
Maybe I misunderstood phase 2 then. There was a plan I saw, and I might be confusing it now, where it extended basically Coburg Inn
Okay.
along. Is that phase 3?
No, I see what you're saying. No, when we ultimately build phase 2, those food trucks will be gone. They'll be gone entirely, but we'll be able to use the concrete pad that we have there that we built for them. But the food trucks will be gone.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet.
I have a quick question, if that's all right. The food trucks, will they be there overnight when not in use? What happens on weekends, that sort of thing? How much will they be there?
Yeah, it's a good question, and quite honestly, I like to we like to think that the food trucks are going to be open from like 11 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the evening every day, 7 days a week. We don't know at this point, but when they're not in use, they will be locked and secured. We have cameras on the Coburg Inn that shine out into that second phase, and we'll put in additional security cameras as well. So they'll be very secure and under, surveillance all the time.
Okay, thank you. Thoughts, questions?
I have, first of all, are these going to be public restrooms that open to the public?
Yeah, yes, they are. And they will be locked and secured at night, but during business hours, they will be open to the public.
The limited duration time limit, I mean, that's really quite vague. So this could end up to almost be a permanent situation. I don't see how the city would have any control over that unless we did put some sort of time limit on it. You say it's going to be temporary, yet we have no indication that it will not be.
I can address that. John, it may not be. I mean, if this is wildly successful, this may turn out to be the highest and best use of the property, but I doubt it. I mean, the property is in a very good location, and ultimately the second phase of our project just makes sense to be built there. It's just the economies do not make sense for us right now. I don't know how long that's going to be. I mean, I'd like to say in 2 years we'll have, we'll be under construction with the second phase of our project, but it's really impossible to say. It's close even now. I think Don and I can both attest to that we've done the numbers, we've considered, doing it, but it just, with the economy being like it is, with interest rates being like they are, with rents being what they are, it just doesn't make financial sense to build that second phase right now. But soon. I mean, I don't think this is the highest and best use of the property, but I think it's a good current use of the property, though.
Megan, I have a quick question. If we were to put a time limit on this temporary concept, how would the city work with that?
Chair, that is something that I would have to look into. It's my understanding that the planning commission could impose such a time restriction, but I do not know what that process would look like.
You might think about putting some kind of a check-in in a time frame that they have to check in, or back with the planning commission if it's not, if it's still there in 5 years or whatever. Just city council has imposed that on properties before, that there is a time frame where it has to be developed, or they need to come back to city council. So, I mean, that's one idea that would allow them to come back if the economy is still not good and seek approval to continue their use, I guess.
I kind of think that would be appropriate, some sort of renewal type license process. I'm not sure exactly how to say it, but I would hate to say that this would be, could be considered permanent. It's not something that the Allen wants to see permanent either. I'm sure of that, but in any case, at some point the public we have to be pretty clear with them saying, yeah, this isn't supposed to be permanent, it's supposed to be on a limited time. So how do we assure the public that that's going to be the case? And so I think that's important to address. Not sure how this, again, I have problems with this under the master plan, since this whole development, the whole piece of property was done under a master plan development. And with phase 1, phase 2, and I believe there was a phase 3, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not sure how you incorporate a temporary use such as this going to be within that master plan that was done prior on this property.
Phase 2 and phase 3 were approved of the master plan, were approved conceptually. But will each need to go through a site design review process before buildings are built. And so,
Won't this be considered phase 2?
no,
What do you consider it? Is this particular action? Is this, what do we consider this action then? Within the master plan. In other words, if you had within the master plan, we had phase 1, we had phase 2, we had phase 3, and conceptually within the master plan, it was phase 2 and phase 3. Then, and this particular temporary use is within what the conceptual drawing of phase 2. The original phase 2, is it not?
is this within?
Isn't what he's proposing, this proposal is for putting a temporary use on the phase 2 of the original master plan, but it was a conceptual, I totally agree with the phase 2, phase 3 being in concept. So I'm not sure how we tie the original master plan in with this particular, without actually doing a master plan again for this particular use in phase 2. I'm confused how we did a master plan originally on this property with phase 1 and conceptually phase 2 and phase 3. Do we just ignore what we did, that master plan, and then go forward?
My understanding that the master plan encompassed more tax lots that are inclusive of the entire property that is owned by the applicants today. These 2 tax lots that are being reviewed for site review today are outside of the master plan development, in that they're the location of phase 2. But anything that takes place there would have to go through this site review process. So even if it were the building that is similar to the existing Coburg Inn, that would need to go through the process that this food truck court is going through. So the master plan process approved the larger space of the development along with the utilities, the access, but the actual details of the design were stipulated to go through site design review as part of the master plan process.
So, if the condition of a 5-year review on the temporary approval, if that were proposed, would that meet, how would that the applicant feel about a 5-year?
Is that a question that you're asking us? I mean, I can address that. I mean, but I might back up to the question of whether it was a master plan that was approved as part of the project. And Megan is correct. We received approval for phase 1 of the project with contemplated phase 2 and phase 3. What we also received approval for was kind of, call it the infrastructure, the parking, the access drives, where the grease trap was going to be located, where the septic tank was going to be located, but never for the actual design of phase 2 and phase 3. And so you might call it a master plan, but it wasn't as though the master plan was approved with this specific design in mind. It wasn't that. It was the only design, if you will, that was approved was phase 1. The rest of it was just contemplated, but we allowed the infrastructure to be built as part of phase 1 that would service phase 2 and phase 3, but we never got approval for phase 2 and phase 3, the actual buildings themselves, if that makes sense. But to your question about 5 years, yeah, I think we would be okay with that. There's a side of me that says this is an outright permitted use. Why would we be limited to 5 years at all? But I get it. I'm a citizen of the community. Peggy and I we live here, and we understand that some people might have concerns that this is going to stick around indefinitely. I'd have to talk to Don and my partners about that, but I think that could possibly work. I don't know why we'd be limited to that 5-year period, but if it makes everyone feel better, we would probably be okay with that, because I think we intend to build the phase 2 building, as soon as it's financially reasonable to do it. Or something similar. Yeah.
Something that complements it up.
Right.
Barnyard.
Sorry, I'm having a conversation with my wife sitting next to me at the
Sorry
same time
about
I'm
that.
talking to you. I don't think we'd be opposed to that.
I have some more.
Go ahead.
Also in there's mention of an entertainment venue. Is that something that's permitted in the underlying zone description?
Small events, I believe, are permitted, and it would go through a review process, a permit process for either a special event or a temporary use.
So, anytime they have entertainment, that will be, they'll have to make a request for a permit.
I do not know what the process is when people want to have one night of music. I know that some other establishments in town do, and I can look into that and get you an answer, but
Well, it's
Not
in
process.
it's in the application. Venue, entertainment stage, and what. So I'm just kind of curious, how is that allowed use within this underlying zone? And if so, that's fine. I'm just kind of curious. I didn't see it. But I understand that if the applicant's going to have entertainment, he has to get a permit. That's fine, but every time he does it, he has to get a permit. That's my question, I guess.
the applicant would need to follow the same process that other establishments in this zoning designation do, which I am not certain of, but I could find that answer for you. I'm not sure if that's a special event permit or if just one night is an exception. I know that there are noise ordinances around the time that it needs to stop.
I'm just kind of curious about.
If there's other business in the area that do have one night music events, they don't have to have an application for every one of their events. The bistro has evenings where they have live music.
So it's not required to have
As
a
does the
permit.
winery. So I do not think that they need to have a permit for every time they have music.
Okay.
I think if they held an event, a large event where they are inviting large amounts of the general public, and it's going to be more than everyday business, and that absolutely is an event, and that has a separate application for sure.
Also on the staff report, their city did not require a TIS for the intersections of Water Street and West McKenzie, and for West McKenzie and Willamette on this thing. And I'm wondering why.
There are certain standards that trigger a traffic impact analysis or a TIA. They were not met for this project. Our engineer did not require a TIA.
Okay. We will continue our deliberation. Any other questions or thoughts or motion?
Okay, I'm just curious. So you have two of the food carts are, you're in talks with the types of food? Need to give that sort of information out or no? Not at this time. I'm just curious. I mean, I would love to see more options for food in this town. So. Yeah.
Alan, did you hear that question? That was what
No.
types of food trucks do you have lined up?
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't quite hear it. Well, we have two, possibly three. We have you remember Morello's Mexican food. They had a restaurant across the street. They have a food truck for Mexican food. They also have a food truck for Thai food. And then we're talking to a gal who's got a vegetarian, her name's Heaven, who has a vegetarian food truck downtown in the, was it Martin Luther King Plaza?
It was.
Yeah. And she's really excited about it too. But so we have two for sure, one that we're talking to so far.
Thank you.
So is there a motion to approve? Motion to approve with conditions? Date?
Deliberate.
Chair, I think we need to close the hearing prior to deliberation.
Technically, the hearing closed at 6:50 PM. I gavelled and recorded the time.
Am I missing
That's
this?
contract after with council deliberation.
Okay, I sincerely apologize.
It's all right.
I'm just being the police here, making sure that we're crossing our Ts.
So yes, this is council deliberation and decision.
I'm not sure how to put this particularly, but I'm not sure, John, to speak to your point about the timeline. I see the concern, I hear the concern. And I mean, shoot, my office is literally, I stare at that lot all day long in my giant window. I don't know if it's necessary to ask for a 5-year timeline. Personally, as we deliberate. I don't know if that's necessarily something we need to throw in it.
It's an allowed use and our code as an allowed use. I wish we had a time limit on that in our allowed code because I mean, this is prime real estate. I would hate for it to remain a food cart indefinitely. But I understand the economics of it. I understand that'd be nice that it's being used as opposed to an empty lot. It's weeds growing and it's getting maintained. That's the plus about it.
If we rephrase the time limit thing to more of a consultation with the planning commission, just inform us what's the plan, the new plan, how our finances and so forth. Looking for the next 5 to 10 years, would that be less onerous?
I guess so. I mean, as far as like us making formulating a motion to approve, given the 3 conditions that staff has highlighted, I guess I'm deliberating with you and deliberating with myself. I don't know if we need a 4th condition on a timeline. I can be swayed on that, of course, but the permitted use aspect. The aspect that I also think from a business perspective, you're getting probably a lower lot rent from a food truck than you would an occupant of phase two. Right? Unless there's a cut of profit of the food trucks going to the wells or, to the applicant, excuse me. I kind of see the economics of this not being a long-term solution. And that the economics of phase two certainly would pencil out a little bit more. So back to the thought of, I don't know if we need a timeline. I understand the concern, and I certainly understand like the clarification of it and even the consultation approach of it. I just don't know if it's all that necessary to put into our motion.
The economic realities of today are sometimes in the control of the applicant and sometimes not. I also share your opinion that the economics of the site will prompt more permanent structures down the road anyway. We have no formal regulation or rules that I know of that say food carts need only temporary approval. So we can feel free to let nature and economics take its course as far as a time limit and not worry about it.
I don't know, John, how does that feel on you?
Well, I don't disagree with the fact that it's in allowed use. The issue is the fact that the staff report put it in there that it was going to be a temporary and limited. And that's what's out there, in my view, out to the public. And I think that we should either that needs to be clarified that this could be a permanent operation, not that it will be. I'm not suggesting it would be. I'm just saying that there's a chance that it may not be limited or temporary. And I think that needs to be clear.
So you're saying, just to clarify, if I hear you right, since staff has put it in their report, maybe we should clarify it more and reiterate what staff has said.
And I
As a
understand
temporary
that
use,
the
yeah.
applicant is saying that it's still only going to be temporary. Well, why say that?
I see that point. Yeah.
Why say it's only gonna be temporary? There's no reason for the applicant to say that if it's an allowed use. You see my point? And if the applicant and the staff is saying that it is just going to be temporary, then how temporary? I think that either it is or it isn't. If it's temporary, then we got to have a date or somehow say that, no, it's not temporary. It's going to stop at.
Or it's possible that it
within the
continues.
next 3 years.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Make the record clear. I
Yeah.
get it. Yep. I see that point, John. That's a good point.
Yeah, Don Johnson. I'm 2806 45th Court in Albany, Oregon, and I'm,
Don, could you hold on a second? Should I reopen the hearing?
oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to answer this one question. If you could open it, I appreciate it.
I think you just need to ask the commission if they're willing to have him answer the question.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Don.
Okay. Well, anyway, I've been listening to this and as the architect, I of course want to see phase 2 building that I've designed. I've got thousands and thousands of dollars invested in it. We were basically at permit drawings and we submitted that to a local general contractor. Unfortunately, the cost of the building exceeded the revenues. So that's why we're at this junction. The temporary might be coming from the concept of the building that I designed. And I brought this along and I can share it with you or not. This is the building I designed for phase 2. This gray shadow area right there is actually what we call temporary. And the reason we call it temporary, it's not actually going to go away. It's just going to be incorporated into the overall architecture of the building. And you'll note that this is very similar to phase 1, but it's embellished and changed. The roof lines are different, but it has the same concepts of apartments and retail on the bottom. And this will become, ultimately is intended to become a pub or something that would be incorporated into the retail function of the first floor. And so I think we started calling this temporary or because of our concept that this is building is gonna be there, but it's only gonna be there for a short period of time until we can justify the construction of the rest of the building. So that's probably where that word is coming from. And so I just wanted to clarify it up, if that makes any sense.
It definitely makes complete sense.
Okay, I could just,
It's just that the implication or the understanding would be is that the food truck is a temporary thing and it won't last very long. And
Right.
that's where I'm coming from. And I think that needs to be clear that, you know, this could be prolonged out there quite a ways. Granted, it is not the plan, your plan as the applicant to leave it food trucks forever, but
Yeah, John, I see the point of just clarifying the language in the staff report and making sure that we align with staff and honestly with the overall plan. So I agree with that. I see that. And also if the applicant, as Alan said, is okay with 5 years, you know, I think maybe I'm belaboring something that we don't need to, so.
Any motions on this item?
You're smiling at me. I'll make the motion that we approve, the application with the 3 conditions found by staff, including a 4th condition of a clarification on time horizon, specifically revisiting this in 5 years. That sound fair?
Is there a second for such a motion?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand and say aye.
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 So approved.
Thank you.
Could the commission please clarify the language of the 4th condition of approval?
The 4th condition of approval would be that we revisit the temporary status of the food truck in 5 years. That sound right?
In consultation with the applicant.
In consultation with the applicants. Is that, Megan, is that okay?
Yes, I think that's great. Thank you so much.
I wish my emotions could be more articulate, like,
I think we need to
Commissioner
make sure
Marshall's, but-
that we are putting in the official name of the application, the title of the applications when we are putting in that 4th condition. That makes sense? Because his motion was, or his was food truck and it's a little bit bigger than that. It's a food truck plaza.
so,
Yeah,
yes.
so we need to
yes.
make sure that the language reflects the application title.
Which he's calling a food truck plaza, yeah. Thank you.
Megan, quick question. At this point, do you want discussion item or the goals and vacancy?
You can go ahead and do the discussion item on Willamette first.
Next on our agenda apparently is the discussion item on the intersection of Willamette Street and Van Dyne Street. And consider a recommendation to be made to the city council about the problem intersection. Anybody have thoughts on that?
I do, of course. Since I'm the one that actually brought the discussion up, the new subdivision that we just approved tonight, or at least recommended for approval, that access will be using this intersection. And that intersection had been addressed previously in the city's transportation plan. Transportation system plan, it's TSP. as needing modifications, and that specifically stated within that transportation system plan that they that prior to any development to the north, it said north, but I really think that the impact is there, whether it comes from the north or it comes from the east into that intersection. And what I am recommending or proposing that we, as a body, pass a motion that asking city council to address this intersection formally with the county, since it is a county intersection, or at least that they have a lot to say about that intersection. And have the council direct staff to proceed with working with the county to come up with some modifications to make it I would say a safer intersection. I would like to add, after our meeting in December, as I was walking home, it just happened to be an accident at that intersection where a car went straight through and went on through on Willamette Street and ended up in the ditch. And I don't know exactly how the individual drove away. He had busted wheel, tire, and everything else, but somehow wobbled himself away. So the intersection, this transportation system plan draft, or whatever it is, was done in 2013. Is that correct? The plan? And so that was an issue at that time. It was addressed as being an issue. And yet we still have not been able to get any movement with the county on trying to figure out what to do with that intersection. If you were to go there and observe the traffic at any time with heavy truck traffic coming through it, any semi with a pup are unable to make that corner without going into the oncoming lanes or into the bicycle path. The county in itself has, I don't say designate that, but accept this as a freight route through here. By their own transportation system plan, it says in it that they will have, their roads need to accommodate freight. And yet here we have one, right, that cannot accommodate what I consider freight traffic. So therefore, I'm asking that as a body that we recommend that city council do something formally on this and try to get it out in the forefront. Just because, if nothing else, because of the subdivision that's coming in there, because now we'll have cars coming out there, more cars coming out of that, into that intersection from North Willamette Street and from Van Dyne coming into that intersection. And who's going to stop? And then we're going to have kids, and I believe you said that's part of the safe route to school.
Yeah, so the design of the road, as the engineer is doing it right now, Van Dyne and North Willamette, they are designing with the thought that it's a safe route to school from the neighborhood. So possible sidewalks that connect to the sidewalks that already exist on Van Dyne. Yeah, so.
I agree.
Are chair allowed to make motions? Chair allowed to make motions?
It should probably come from council, a commission.
I would entertain a motion on said topic.
I will make the motion to request the mayor and city council to formally address the issue of the intersection of North Willamette Street and West Van Dyne, and to direct staff to research possible modifications to this intersection.
Add that it as being a safe route to the school.
You certainly may.
With that addition, is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Passed. Thank you.
So I can just let the commissioners know that I kind of got ahead of this because John and I have already kind of talked about this and our engineer is looking at the intersection to try to just come up with some ideas just ahead of the game. The other piece is, I can add this to the work plan. In addition to taking it to city council, I can also add it to the work plan that will be presented to the council on their February 4th retreat as a request from the planning commission. Then it is placed on the staff work plan. And if the council agree to have that on there, then it actually goes on to the work plan of the city. So that's something that your goals can develop work plan areas, commissions and committees of the city can ask for certain things to be put on the work plan. So your goals do go onto the work plan. And so I can certainly add this. And if the council thinks it's appropriate, then when they approve that work plan, they would be approving that particular project.
Well, I do want to add that I really think that the council and the mayor need to themselves formally address it either via letter to the county, addressing the concerns that the city has with that intersection.
I can definitely, or if one of you want to come and represent this decision of your body at the next council meeting, you're welcome to do that as well. Or we can write something that they receive at their retreat from your commission, so that they know that this is really important and that you really want them to address that. So you can recommend what you would like them to do.
I can act as that conduit if need be. Now, according to staff, we need to talk about the goals for 2022 and 23.
Yes, thank you for accepting this addition. Setting goals and priorities for the year is something each committee does annually. And as Anne was just discussing, the council work plan, they like to incorporate the goals of committees into the staff work plan for the upcoming year. And so it is time for the planning commission to set the goals and priorities for 2023. The list I've provided you is the list from 2022. And so you can choose to keep those as they are or make additions or removal.
How did our participation in trainings on land use go last year?
Believe we only held one by the city attorney. Staff have been in contact with a land use professional who teaches classes to officials, and he is willing to coordinate to do more training opportunities in the upcoming year.
You guys think we should keep that or?
Well, I think it's, I think it's fine. I just think that that's a very broad topic. Pretty obvious in my mind that I'm pretty ignorant of master plans. So I'd love to have some training on master plans to tell me exactly, what their purpose is and how they're used going forward in the future. Because we just did one for across the freeway No, we didn't do a master plan for that. We did one for Hayden Homes.
That wasn't master plan.
Yes.
That was a master plan.
The property that was annexed will have to go through a master plan process, but that has not occurred yet.
You can be very specific in what kind of trainings you want. So leave the goal and you can say, we want training and master plans.
Came up this evening is when we give, or when we make a decision or recommendation on a planning proposal. One of the issues we bump up against as a group is the concept of time. What is temporary? What is the meaning in the law and land use law? What's the background or framework in land use planning in Oregon when a decision is made? Is this something that's 100 years? Is this something that's 1 year? I know it's kind of an abstract thing, time, but we all know that if we give permission for a gas station to be built down there and 10 years later, they still haven't built it, what's the outcome? You know, what does that all mean? How long is it effective for? How a land use decision? If the applicant disappears or runs out of money, what's the standard of practice in Oregon? That makes sense?
Yes, thank you.
The application isn't acted upon.
Yeah.
The zoning code does call out for certain types of development an expiration date. Typically what I've seen is 1 year, but I'm not certain if that applies to all applications.
It'd be interesting for a land use lawyer to give us their input on what case law and what the courts have ruled in Oregon on that. Is it something that you get legally backed up on, or is it something that a jury or a judge will say, "Well, maybe, maybe not"? Be nice to know.
I also heard tonight questions on types of applications. Would it be beneficial for you to be educated on the types of applications that are received by the city and what your responsibility are with those types? I'm just throwing that out there.
A little off the subject here. On the goals, but we had a parking ordinance, or part of our code was that we had to have parking. But I guess it's just the downtown that we're talking about.
So this is an education piece that needs to come to planning commission, but it hasn't been clearly yet defined by the state, but Coburg is going to be under state mandates to address parking, which reduces what we require. And so basically what the state's saying is you should just go ahead and use our language as it's been established at this point. And you don't even need to change your code. You just go to the state language. The reason that we're kind of holding back on this is because there are several cities that have went together and filed a lawsuit and are challenging the state mandates. So that's kind of why it's a little bit in limbo right now. But as it sits, Coburg will have to address parking. And there's a timeline on that, and I want to say it's 2020 in 23, we are going to have to address how we manage parking in our code. And so, like I said, there's cities pushing back. There has been a lawsuit filed. So we're trying to gather the information and figure out what Coburg has to do. Also, that takes funding. So thus far, it could be unfunded mandate. There is some funding, may be made available, but also Coburg has the opportunity to opt out some of the things. So this is an education that we will have to bring to you. But it is complicated right now. So we're just still trying to figure it out as a staff.
Is there anything else you need from us on goals?
Just a motion to approve the list as amended with the specific topics, and if there's anything else you'd like to add or change.
I so move.
Second, please.
I guess I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vacancy.
Got a couple neighbors I'll talk to.
Okay. It's a great learning opportunity about civics, economics, politics, personalities, abnormal personalities, etc. So yes, that'd be great. Spread the word around.
Are there any applicants currently or any?
None that I'm aware of. I believe that the recruitment just opened. Alan Wells resigned from the Planning Commission at the end of 2022 and was officially brought on to City Council. So that just opened.
Okay, thank you. City updates, critical, deadly important items only.
Wanted to say that John's concerns about transportation. There is a transportation committee that was meeting with Mayor Smith. I know that Mayor Bell plans to pull that group back together. And that group will start with priority discussions of what it is they want to cover. And so transportation is a big deal in Coburg. And I think that John has been meeting with that committee and has a lot to offer it. But I just want to let you know that we are pulling that committee together. And I'm just letting our new mayor get her feet on the ground, and we have some deadlines with the council retreat and different deadlines that we're meeting, but I'm hoping to bring that committee together in mid-February to start their discussion. And that will include representatives from the county who have already said that they would participate in the committee, as well as hopefully members from ODOT. And the purpose of that is to start build onto the partnership we already have and really be able to sit down and discuss our concerns and our priorities for what we want to see happen in Coburg. And so I just wanted to let you guys know that. So
Thank you.
Just freezing. Hands went right on me.
If there's nothing else, I would like to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.